Well, everybody's quiet. I guess we're ready to get started, huh? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Tuesday, October the 19th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, all commissioners are present, county manager, attorney, and our deputy manager and finance director. Let me ask you to silence your mobile devices. If you've got something that's going to make a noise tonight, please silence that device. And remember, when you come to the podium, if you're speaking or presenting, please be sure you activate the microphone so that we can hear you and get good recording of our meeting tonight. We are delighted to have Pastor David Bridges with us tonight from the First Apostolic Church. And Pastor Bridges will bring our invocation. That'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by our county attorney. Will lead us, Mr. Simpson. So, Pastor, would you come and let's stand together.
Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we thank you and praise you for this beautiful day that you've blessed us with. Thank you, Lord, for this meeting tonight. I pray that you'd bless each commissioner for their dedication to our county. Pray that you would touch each speaker. Let them speak with grace and humility in all that they say. Lord, and above all, let us give you praise in everything that we do and say. For, Lord, you are truly the reason why we are blessed beyond our comprehension. We love you tonight. We praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let me go see if this IT guy can get my computer straight.
Okay.
It says change the password.
All right, gentlemen, the next item on our agenda is approval of agenda. Let me note that we do have, I believe, two new items on our agenda. Item number 5 will be coming from the county manager, presentation of our newly hired planning director. And item number 2 under decisions comes from the community development, a letter opposing House Bill 865. So I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with these two new items.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Abley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. I believe that's all of us, Madam Clerk. All right, item number 5 on our agenda is approval of meeting minutes. Tonight, gentlemen, we have meeting minutes from August the 3rd, 2021, Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting, August 17, 2021, Board of Commissioners regular meeting, August 24, Board of Commissioners recess meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve these meeting minutes as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That is all of us, Madam Clerk. Presentations. So we have several presentations tonight. Our first one comes from Animal Services, Pet of the Month, presented by Caitlin Settlemeyer, our Animal Services Director. Evening, Caitlin.
Thanks so much for having us. So we will introduce our Pets of the Month. I can start with our Cat of the Month. We have a few little pictures of our Cat of the Month. His name is Spooky. He was very sad he could not attend tonight's meeting, but he said he may be a little nervous up here. So I spelled Spooky's name wrong. Spooky is a 12-week-old male short-haired kitty cat. You may, if you've taken a trip to Tractor Supply in the last week or so, have seen Spooky and his brother down there at Tractor Supply. They are part of our business program, so we do have businesses who come in, check out kitty cats, and they host them in their businesses for us just to get exposure. But Spooky is back at the shelter with his brother. They are getting neutered this week, and they are both available for adoption. Both of these guys are really well socialized, really friendly with everyone. So if you are looking to add a cat or kitten, please come down to Animal Services, meet Spooky, his brother, and everybody else we have down there. So that is our kitty cat of the month. His name is not spelled with 2 P's, it's 2 O's. Meatball is our dog of the month. You may have seen him roaming around here for the last few minutes. So Meatball, surprisingly, has been with us a very long time. And I'm not sure why. He is an excellent dog. Meatball loves other dogs. So he would really enjoy a family who has another really outgoing dog. He is fairly active and he loves water. So if you are an active family looking for a hiking buddy, maybe you take a lot of river trips, boating trips, he would be an excellent companion. He does go with one of our fosters regularly to play with their dog. They come and check him out for about 3 to 4 hours a day and then bring him back for the evening. So he is just a wonderful dog. He is neutered, he's fully vaccinated, and he is ready to find his forever home. This month we are having a Halloween event, a very spectacular Halloween party down at Animal Services on the 30th. So if you and your family are looking for something fun to do, come out and hang out with us Saturday. We are going to have half off adoption fees. So if anybody's interested in Meatball, his adoption fee will be half price that day, along with Spookies, his brothers, and all of our kitty cats. We are overloaded with animals, so please come and visit us. And we are going to have costume contests. You're more than welcome to take our dogs around for trick-or-treating. We're going to have different stations for them to go trick-or-treating at. So it'll be a really good time for everyone. The costume contest and the trick-or-treating will be from 2 to 4, and we are having an all-day adoption event. So I would encourage anyone who's interested to please come out. We're always looking for fosters to join our team as well. If you've never fostered, it is one of the most rewarding things you can ever do. So these animals come home with you, we provide everything, you provide the love, and we network them while you're in your home, and then they move on to their forever home. So you are that temporary holding place so they don't have to stay in the shelter around sickness, disease, or they don't really get a lot of love and attention like we would like, just because we are a staff of so many. So if you are interested, please email us or call or visit us. And if anybody is interested in adopting Meatball, our shelter is open until 7, so please go on down there after the meeting. We do also have a few other things we'd like to touch on. I think everybody's aware of some things our enforcement crew has been up to in the last week. It's been in the paper. And I just really want to elaborate kind of on our process and what our enforcement team is all about. So we go out to a property that we get a call about, and we find this horse out there. And of course, if anybody would look at this picture, you would know that that horse would raise a few concerns. So what we want to do, we don't want to make any assumptions, so we do reach out to that owner, make contact with him, try to figure out what's going on with the horse. We come out to his property. This is later on down the road. So that skinny horse that you saw there in that first picture, we made contact with him a week later. This was on September 1st. And we finally make contact with him a week later. We go out to the property and we find that this horse had already been deceased. He said it had fallen down in a ravine and passed away while he was not there. He said the horse was unable to get back up. So that did raise some concerns. He was really wanting to work with us, so he led us onto his property. We looked around. We found a few more deficiencies. We did not see these horses quite down there at that time, but he did have a few more things going on. So he had horses in stalls that needed to be mucked, and those are things that could easily be fixed. So we did make those suggestions to him. He told us he was having back problems. He couldn't necessarily financially afford to pay someone to come out and help him with his stalls. So we gave him a month. We let him know, these horses can't stay in these conditions. We really need to improve their quality of care. And, he agreed. We gave him a month. We let him know we would be back in a month to check these guys out. So we come back a month later and we do our recheck as we had planned. The owner was not on the property, so we had left a contact request with the gentleman that was living there at that time, and we were able to gain access to his back pasture because he's got a back pasture on a neighboring property, and we did find 2 horses down there that were in absolutely deplorable conditions. They could not stand up, they could not hardly walk, they were bow-legged, 3-legged, which raised a lot of concerns. So we tried for the next several hours to make contact with that owner. We were able to finally catch him at his home. Our officer went out and asked him about these horses, as well as the other deficiencies we found at our initial visit. And he told us to get off of his property, and he has not mucked those stalls. And we're talking about 3 to 4 feet of manure in these stalls. It's not just, a little poop in the corner that needed to be mucked out. This was something these horses needed to get out of. So at that point, we did obtain search warrants, and we were able to seize these 2 horses and get them the medical care that they needed. They were in really bad shape. Our vet did come out. We ended up having to euthanize this beautiful black and white paint horse because she was in so much chronic pain that we could not get her pain under control. As you can see, her legs are bow-legged. She was never going to live. She was never going to have a good quality of life, so we did have to elect euthanasia on her on Thursday. The bay-colored horse, the stallion, he also had a broken leg that had been that way for, the owner had told us it had only been like that for a week. The vet had assessed it had been like that for several weeks. You can see he's got a lot of muscle atrophy kind of over that back hip. He is also very thin. Their manes do have some cuckaburs in them, but that does happen with horses from time to time, but those do need to be groomed out, but that is the least of their problems. They also have never had their teeth floated, so they had ulcers all in their mouths where their teeth were jabbing them into their gums, into their tongues. So this horse does have a broken splint bone. He is currently resting, but we don't know if he's ever going to be able to be sound, so there is still a chance that he may be a euthanasia as well if he's no longer able to bear weight on that foot. So I really just wanted you guys to see this. There are problems within our county. We really try hard to work with these people, but at some point we do have to take action and do what's best, what we feel is best for these pets. And I really appreciate everything that you guys have done to help us get where we are today for that.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin. Gentlemen, any questions for Caitlin tonight?
Caitlin, if somebody wanted from the general public to donate funds for the care of the horses, and they have that ability to do so?
They do have that ability to do so. The Riddle Center is actually who is hosting our horses, and they may benefit from that donation to help with that, cover that cost of care.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question about a presentation, but I do have a question that I can't answer. And the question was asked, Caitlin, if you're an individual who rehomes animals, including large animals, is there any consideration at all if you go to a place and find an animal that's been brought in 2 or 3 days somewhere to try to get them better? And do you know who the rehoming people are in our county?
So we do have those discussions with people, and if that is a situation that has happened, they do let us know. Still, if you do bring in an animal that is in poor condition, and they need veterinary care, you need to provide it. And if you tell us, hey, yeah, I purchased this horse on Tuesday and I have a veterinary appointment because I do understand that it may be in pain on Thursday, the vet's coming out, that's great. That's perfect. That's what I want to hear. But the fact that these horses have been in someone's care, 30 to 60 plus days and never received veterinary care, maybe even longer. We weren't able to get any solid information out of this gentleman on how long he's had these. He would not provide us a bill of sale or anything like that. That is not okay to keep them living in conditions like that.
Caitlin, as far as making the decision to euthanize the one horse, you had 2 veterinarians assess that horse, and both came to the same conclusion that the horse needed to be euthanized.
Yes, we did. There was a lot of back and forth on, well, your animal control team may not have the necessary education needed to make that assessment. So we did have 2 vets come in and assess both these horses, and they did recommend that this was the best and kindest option for this horse.
Other question, comment? All right, thank you, Caitlin. Thank you for bringing Meatball over tonight. Thank you for this report, and we'll accept
Meatball wants
this
to stay.
information. Thank you. Item number 2 comes from our United Way proclamation declaring November 30th as One Burke Gives Day in Burke County. And this will be presented by Alan Wood with United Way tonight. Alan, good evening.
Thank you, Commissioners. This will be our second annual One Burt Gives Day. Last year was the first. We had 31 nonprofits participating. The total amount raised during the 24-hour period was $43,000. And with our after-hours donation, that went to over $50,000. This is open to any nonprofit that will want to participate. They can participate at no charge. The cost of setting this up and running the website is covered by Burt County United Way. And we have started, we think we're going to, we hope to substantially increase our numbers because we've had a longer lead-in. We really put this one on very quickly last time. We had less than a month to get ready to go. A lot of that was brought on by the pandemic, and we couldn't do some of our normal fundraising activities. And so this came up as an online opportunity. Everybody pulled together, and it was a very successful day. We think with this lead-in, our goal is to exceed this $50,000 by at least 10% or more for this year. So if you know of a nonprofit that would like to participate in this, they can go online to Burt County United Way's website, and they can sign up online that way. And we will have ongoing webinars to upgrade them and update them on how the process will work. There's peer-to-peer challenges. There's opportunity to reach out to your friends to get them to participate, and it's just a great way to help your community.
All right, thank you, Alan. Gentlemen, any questions for Alan tonight? All right, gentlemen, you've got this proclamation in front of you. You've had an opportunity to review it. I'll entertain a motion to adopt proclamation number 2021-07.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to adopt proclamation number 2021-07.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. All those in favor, please signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that is all. That's all right. Thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you, and we hope you'll join us on November the 30th.
Thank you. Item number 3 in the presentation tonight comes from the mission
The meeting place mission.
meeting place mission. I could not get that
That's okay, it's hard to
acronym to come to me.
Yeah,
Thank you,
it's
Susan.
more difficult than you think it is.
Thank
You for having us. And I will plug the One Burt Gives. We participated in that last year, and we're really panicky about it because, like Alan said, we had maybe 3 weeks to get it together. And our organization raised, I think, about $7,000, you know, in just 20, so that was great without having like a whole lot of leads. So we really expect, hopefully, to double, if not more than that, our giving this year. So I think that's a great program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. And we are here because National Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week is November 17th that week, and we are getting we already have a proclamation. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't know really what comes next. Do we just, yay, we got it.
All right, gentlemen. Gentlemen, you've had this proclamation in front of you. Any questions for Susie on this proclamation?
I just tell Susie, of course, I go way back with Susie and her family, and they do an amazing job at this organization. So I tell people to reach deep and support them if they can, because y'all serve an enormous need in this community. So I just want to say thank you so much. And do you need to adopt a dog? You need another dog, Susie.
I do need another dog, but not just a really small one that that's maybe stuffed. I don't know. It's hard. I will say this. We did surpass 35 families this month as far as putting people in housing, which is really nice. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot because we live in a small community, but 35 people in permanent housing is extraordinary. And that's just for this year, for this year. And for the past 4 years, our track record is 98%. Everyone that we've housed, other than a very small percentage, have stayed housed in their own home, which is extraordinary. So we are grateful for community and county support to help us give people the hand up that they need.
All right. Susie, would you like to introduce your
I'm sorry.
colleague?
This is Katie Fox. She is our vice chair of our board and has been involved with the meeting place probably since she was a teenager in some ways.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here tonight, gentlemen. You've got proclamation number 202108 in front of you. I'll entertain a motion to adopt this proclamation.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wayne. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand.
Mr. Chairman, one quick question.
Yes, sir.
It'd be nice, it's a good proclamation, but it'd be nice to have contact information and address in case somebody wants to donate some money or whatever to your firm and to your cause.
Yes, would you like for me to give you that now?
If you'd give it to our
Yeah.
clerk,
I'll be more
great.
than happy to, sure.
Yeah, she can add it later, but I think that's
Absolutely.
important information to be on there.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
That's the only comment I had, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. Ladies, again, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
We're glad to adopt this proclamation. Item number 4, under presentations tonight.
I think we need to take a vote.
I think we did. Didn't we vote?
I vote. I don't think I had my hand up, Madam Clerk, but I agree with the proclamation.
Item number 4 comes from the Board of Commissioners tonight, recognition of our tax administrator. And I'm going to present this recognition, and I'll ask Danny, if he don't mind, to come forward. And again, we've mentioned at our pre-agenda meeting, this award is one that, and I'll come down, Danny, and put my mask on in just a moment. But this is an award that comes nominated by the tax office employees. I think that speaks a lot of our administrator when his employees are feeling good enough about him to nominate him for such an award. And this comes from the North Carolina Tax Collectors Association for his outstanding work in Burke County. And honorees of this award are selected on the basis of individual leadership in county or municipal government, as evidenced by outstanding performance of duties and responsibility of office and performance of services of value to other counties or municipalities of the state. And this award was presented at the association's recent meeting in Cary, North Carolina. So, Danny, we're very proud of you, and I want to come down and present. Let's give Danny a hand. I tell you why this mask is jumping off of me. It's got Appalachian State on the inside of it. That's exactly why that's wanting to fly off of me. And congratulations again. Thank you for all the great work you did for Burke County. And I'm glad to present you with this award tonight. All right, good. All right, our last presentation tonight comes from our county manager, an introduction of our new planning director. And Mr. Manager, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce to you Alan Glines. And we've shared with Alan that in Burke County, we dream big and we expect results. So Alan, I'll let you talk to the board, and if you have questions, I'm sure he'll be glad to answer them. Thank you, sir.
Sure, well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, and members of the public. I'm thankful to join the team here in Burke County. I did want to take a moment to thank Shane Prisby for the leadership he's provided to the department during the time after Mr. Carpenter retired. It's clear to me that the department has been keeping up with the workload and important projects continue. Shane and all of the staff have provided me with a warm welcome and important background on matters concerning the county. So I thank you all for that. I grew up on the west side of Charlotte, but I have many fond memories in Burke County with my family and friends camping and spending time outdoors here. It is a pleasure to serve here in a formal capacity as your planning director. I've been in the planning field for almost 26 years. I spent 21 years in the city of Asheville. Some of that time was in Parks and Recreation, where I worked as a park planner and assistant landscape architect. I worked on small neighborhood parks and several larger community parks and greenways. I'll be here to help Shane with the trail if he needs help with that, or the recreation department on any efforts they might need, if they need me. I've also spent a number of years developing zoning codes and reviewing development plans. I was in Nashville when the second brewery submitted plans to operate. We reviewed our code, and I realized that we really didn't allow breweries in Asheville at the time. So we had to do a code amendment to make breweries legal in the downtown area, which we did. Well, you can see how things are now up there in Asheville in the downtown area. There's at least 10 breweries or more operating there. Most recently, I worked in Conover, and we focused on supporting expansion of manufacturing uses and encouraging additional housing in the community. Catawba County is doing quite well with landing additional manufacturing facilities. I hope there are opportunities for that here as well in Burke County. If we can expand and reshore needed manufacturing, that'll help our economy. As to the housing need, the Unifor region is well documented to have some of the oldest housing stock in North Carolina, and also a shortage of available housing. We need additional housing at all price points. Most of the available housing on the market today are on the market only for days, not weeks or months, and housing prices are up, way up. We need to look at what we can do to support housing here. The results of the 2020 census show a loss of population in Burke County, and additional housing will support population stabilization here, and also starter homes could bring families to this area. This would raise up the next generation for our schools and more workers to support manufacturing and the other sectors of our economy. The work the county is doing to create a strong quality of life for residents and visitors, focused on outdoor activities and placemaking, is on target to meet the expectations of millennials. Millennials are the largest segment of the workforce now, and they are in their prime years for having children and starting families. So we need to support those folks and bring them here. As I was preparing some thoughts for you today, it occurred to me that planning is the intersection of opportunities, resources, insights, and dreams. Opportunities are the things that people aspire to do. Resources are the inherent qualities and attributes in place in the community. Insights are the trend lines and that staff and community experience and recognize. And dreams are the ideas and goals that commissioners and the community want for their future. And I'm looking forward to working with you to plan for Burke County. Thank you.
All right, well, Mr. Glines, we certainly welcome you to Burke County. We look forward to working with you, and glad that you are here. Thank you very
sir.
much.
Thank you so much.
All right, this brings us to item 7, scheduled public hearings tonight. We have 2 scheduled public hearings tonight. The first one will come from BDI. This will be a building reuse grant for Project T2 and public hearing. This will be presented tonight by Alan Wood, our BDI president and CEO. Alan, come again with a different hat on.
Yeah, we'll change hats on this one. So thank you, commissioners, Mr. Manager, clerk. This is a building reuse grant for an existing industry that's looking to move into a new facility or a different facility. They will be creating 30 new jobs to this company, at least 30. We had asked for $500,000. We're not sure what they will grant per job, but we asked for the maximum. That means the maximum match on this could be up to $25,000. It's likely to be less than that. The building is just in the county. It's not in another municipality, so it would be a match just from the county on this. This is a good company. I've been working with them for 6 years trying to find them a location, and hopefully we found them a new home.
All right, thank you, Alan. Gentlemen, you've had this information. You've heard Alan's report. Any questions for Alan before I open the public hearing?
That's all my questions for you, Jim.
All right. Seeing and hearing no questions, then at this time, I'll open the public hearing. Do we have anyone to speak tonight to this matter, Madam Clerk? All right. With that, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2021-14. And also to approve a grant administration contract with the COG pending a building reuse grant award for Project T2, and to approve a general fund balance appropriation of up to $25,000 for an economic development incentive for Project T2 for the local grant match pending notification of a building reuse grant award, and to approve the related agreement for a building reuse grant and authorize the chairman to execute it on behalf of the board subject to a grant award.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. All those in favor, please signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that's 5-0. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Item number 2 tonight comes from Community Development. Resolution to withdraw PARTF and STBGDA grants in public hearing. This will be presented by Shane Frisbee, our interim planning director. Evening, Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As we discussed at the pre-agenda meeting, the Fonteflora Trail, North Powerhouse Road, and Cobb Avenue projects have run into issues. The project, which is funded by a Surface Transportation Block Grant, direct attributable from the Western Piedmont Council of Governments, which is matched by a Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant from North Carolina Parks. STBGDA grants are funded through the Federal Highway Administration, which dictates the process and design parameters that a project must follow. The Community Development Department began running the project through the process required by the Federal Highway Administration, but ran into issues concerning the scope, scale, and timing. Because of delays associated with NCDOT's financial crisis, the department ultimately had to separate the STBGDA and PARTF grants into separate projects. The department sought and was awarded a scope change for the PARTF grant, which was authorized in March 2021. Given the short timeline, staffing changes, and issues scheduling appraisers and surveyors, it became clear that the department would not be able to complete the project by the October 31st deadline. This resulted in the department submitting the resolutions to withdraw from the project for your consideration. Since the pre-agenda meeting, the department has received a flurry of calls encouraging the county to find a way to succeed with the project. These conversations included the Friends of Fonteflora Trail and the Director of State Parks, Dwayne Patterson. To complete the PARTF grant project, the county would need right-of-way on a minimum of 8 properties from 6 different landowners. The biggest issues that the department ran into were timing and staff capacity. These issues were exacerbated by the lingering effect of the pandemic, NCDOT's financial issues, and other factors beyond our control. With additional time and our new planning director, Ellen Glines, we feel that there is a path forward for the PARTF grant project. While the department cannot guarantee success, we feel confident that we can complete this project. Success with the PARTF grant would help offset the expenses from the STBGDA grant and allow us additional time to explore any alternatives that may exist. The STBGDA grant does not have the same hard deadlines that the PARTF grant does. The department met with Raleigh PARTF staff to discuss the situation and the possibility of a second one-year extension to October 31st, 2022. The meeting was very positive, and they lined out what we would need to submit in the request to the PARTF board to vote on. The commissioners have the option to table the votes on the 2 resolutions and the general fund appropriation after the public hearing and pursue a second extension of the PARTF grant. If the extension is not awarded, the board would be able to vote on the withdrawal and not be in breach of contract. If the extension is awarded, the department can continue the PARTF grant project and reassess the STBGDA grant at a future date. Thank you very much, and I welcome any questions that you may have on this issue.
All right, thank you, Shane. Gentlemen, we heard all this information at pre-agenda, and now Shane is giving us some new information about the possibility of extending this party for grant. Any questions for Shane before I open the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, y'all all probably received calls on this. It looks like we may be able to resuscitate this in some form or fashion. If there's a possible way forward, my viewpoint is I think we should grant an extension, to be perfectly candid, because we do have new information, and I hate not to use any monies available if there is an opportunity at all. So and you're saying that you feel there is a way forward, possibly, no guarantees, if we do grant that 1-year extension.
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner.
Okay.
I think looking at the situation again, really one of the biggest issues was my limited capacity during the very short window that we had to complete this. And we never received hard no's from folks, but we did not have the time to have the conversations that we needed to move forward with the PARTIF grant. And as you can see, this is the scope change that we requested. And from this, we're really only talking about a short stretch of North Powerhouse Road where we're only talking about a few parcels. I feel like if we have that time, we can have those discussions and we can find a way to move forward on this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I feel much like Scott does. I feel I've had some calls, and I think the new information on here, I think we should delay it for a year.
Mr. Tyler?
Mr. Chairman, I had 2 or 3 questions. I am delighted that there might be an opportunity that for that $262,000 in change that we would get some benefit for. However, I do have a couple of quick questions. And the first one is about the $262,875. In this interim, if we delay it and try to complete that project, what happens to that 262? Does it grow? Do we go ahead and pay that since it's due? How does that fit into the picture of those funds? Or will the payment be delayed until we find out the other answers, I guess is the best way to do it.
To your question, Commissioner, that number will not grow. That is a separate grant and contract from the PARTIF grant entirely. And that money, which has been expended with the exception of $819 and some change, which they may ask for, is incorporated in the about $263,000 number that you have. So that will not grow. One of the advantages of trying to find a way to make the Part F grant work is that whatever is not spent on completing that project, we would be able to use up to $120,000 for associated costs. Whatever is not spent, we could use to offset the expenses we already incurred on the STBGDA grant for appropriate expenditures, which are primarily survey, which the survey was the highest cost from that. So that number could be close to $100,000 depending on the expenses that we need. It may be less, but it would certainly go a long way to cut down that $263,000 and ultimately cost the county less if we still walked away from the STBGDA grant at the end of the day.
Okay. What percentage would you give that project to be successful now with this new insight? 60, 70?
I would say 75%.
75.
As a conservative estimate. I think that really, in my mind, it came down to working with two landowners about where the trail would cross the road. That was the question that we had. And they're landowners that we do know, and members of this board do know. And we're hoping that, given the opportunity, we can start an intentional conversation with them to find a way to move forward and work this out that's agreeable for everyone involved. That was really the issue that we weren't able to pass. And I don't think that we had enough time to do that and have the conversation that I think we could have with them to make this work for everybody where everybody's happy. That, to me, is, if we can pass that hurdle, we can do this. The timing, we can schedule everything up front. We schedule our surveyors, we schedule our appraisers. If it's 3 to 6 months out, we have that time, but we start those conversations. And those conversations are what bring us to success.
The timetable to bring a decision, yes, we can do this or not. What kind of timetable we're looking at? I'm not talking about completing the job, just telling this board it's a go because we got all these approvals.
To what we would need to do if we choose to seek a second extension, I have the draft extension letter together. I need to add a little bit more details on timeline, but that would not be a day's worth of work to get together the submission that we would need to send in. We would send it in to the part of board and the Raleigh staff for review, and they would consider that, and I don't know the exact time schedule for them voting on it, but I can figure that out. I can ask them about that, but it would turn around really quickly considering that we're approaching the original deadline for the contract. So once they said that we could go ahead from day one, then we would be working off the timeline that I will put together as part of the submission to them, of starting to line up our surveyors and appraisers and start contacting landowners immediately.
So what you just said, it could happen before the end of the year. Could happen that fast.
It could. I'm not optimistic that I'll get a surveyor and appraiser prior to January. I was anticipating about 3 months out as a rough number. I'm hoping things have slowed down a little bit. With NCDOT coming back online with so many of their projects, they booked everybody out for months. I begged people to try to find a way to fit it in their schedule, or thought about trying to break it up, and I couldn't get anybody till the end of October at the earliest. I think with the more financial troubles that are coming down the pike for NCDOT, that should open up availability for some of the people that we need. And given the amount of time, if we had a 1-year extension, we would have plenty of buffer room should the conversations with landowners take longer than we thought. Should it take longer for the surveyors and appraisers to get together. But we would have a buffer and we would have time to do it manageably.
So 3 to 6 months would be a good guess.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. That's all my questions.
Anything else for Shane? All right, thank you, Shane. With that, I'll open the public hearing at this time. And Madam Clerk, anyone to speak to this item tonight?
Yes, Miss Beth Hiley is here.
All right, Ms. Hiley, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Beth Hiley, Executive Director of Friends of the Fontaflora State Trail. The Friends of the Fontaflora State Trail support Burke County Community Development Department's request for an extension to the current part of Grant. In August, Judge Bob Hunter, who is president of the Friends of the Fontaflora State Trail, and myself met with Shane, and that's when we learned of the concerns with Shane wearing so many hats and having trouble contacting appraisers and surveyors to get them out on this project. Judge Bob Hunter put Shane in contact with a surveyor he works with frequently, and Shane was able to get in touch with that man, and unfortunately he couldn't get it finished by the end of this month with the due date of the part of Grant, but he is able to get it in the next several months, so we see that as a positive. The week and a half ago, I was in Old Fort with a ribbon cutting for a new section of Fontaflora State Trail there, and I had State Parks Director Dwayne Patterson there with me. I took the opportunity to update him on the situation because I knew Shane had submitted a request to withdraw the grant, and I told Director Patterson the story and updated him, and he suggests that we get on a conference call with Shane right away. That happened instantaneously. Shane was willing to take our call and talk it out. Director Patterson asked him a few more questions, and with that, Director Patterson strongly encouraged Shane to get the meeting with Cardiff and present his new facts of having a new planning director and Shane having more time and just, how things are changing. So that meeting happened Friday, as Shane mentioned, and we did send a letter of support before Shane's meeting to go to State Parks Director Dwayne Patterson, even though he knew, so it was on the record, Judy Francis, who was the part of contact contact here, and Chris Schmidt, who is the part of Grant's administrator. So they know that we're in support too. As you know, this is a critical section of Fontaflora State Trail, and we feel it's definitely worth the effort to see it through. We'll support the county in this process in any way we can, if it's meeting with landowners, if it's helping with the surveyor, whatever we can do. We feel that another 12 months should allow the Burke County Community Development Department to reach success or know once and for all that this cannot be achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hiley.
That's all the cards I have. I did get a call from Eric Jenkins earlier today expressing support for moving forward with the project if possible.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeing here no one else to speak to this item, I'll close the public hearing. And gentlemen, I'll call your attention to the third page, top of the third page, if it is your desire to go with this extension. I would probably suggest we, on that bottom line, move this down the road to February to give as much time as possible to get to where we need to be before we make a motion. But with that, I will entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make the motion to table this to the February meeting, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Then we would table both resolutions and the fund balance appropriation to the February meeting with this motion, okay? All those in favor of the motion by Vice Chair Mulway, please signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that's 5-0. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Beth, and others who've worked on this already. We certainly hope that it can be successful and that we can make this part of our trail happen. All right, this brings us, excuse me, to item number 8, informal public comments tonight. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers tonight?
We do. We have Miss Carla Kincaid from Oak Hill.
All right, Ms. Kincaid, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm here this evening, and as usual, Carla Kincaid from Oak Hill, Highway 126, Morgan in North Carolina. Enjoyed substitute teaching these past few weeks and months, trying to help out as much as possible. Just coming back to you again, I'm still researching Captain William Joseph Kincaid, by the way, and I just wanted to come forward and let you know why I always come up. You know, I'm very adamant about whatever I do. I'm not a quitter. And I always think there's always something to discuss as far as unity in the community. I did have some experiences when I was away in Washington, D.C. area, D.C. Statehood Committee, and was very involved in politics as far as D.C. Statehood Committee and a lot of other things throughout my time away from Burke County. But I'm back, and I just wanted to fast forward to some recent experiences and reactions of visitors and relatives who traveled I-40 to Morgan for a brief visit. They came to celebrate their grandmother's 90th birthday, which is located in the little community of Bostick off of 64. And nevertheless, they came to visit us before they left the area over here in Morganton and had to pass by Interstate 40 there. She was kind of embarrassed by the flags as her friends became a little stunned and didn't know what to expect as they exited into Morganton. Thankfully, they took the exit at WPPC at Western Piedmont Community College, exit where they didn't have to pass through downtown area and have an encounter with the old guy at the old courthouse square. So when he mentioned his shock, the visitor mentioned his shock and really didn't know what to expect. I had to laugh it off and say, it's not like you think it is. You're okay. Because it kind of did what the statue does and what a rebel flag does when people see it just from out of town. I'm sure he's not the only one. It's a prime example of what tourists and others driving I-40 has to question or continues to pass through without stopping. And some do. As I travel a lot, I do the same thing. It's not welcoming to a lot of travelers, and not just African-American travelers. And as far as the Nature's Playground billboard, I had the Capitol when I had an experience a few weeks ago. My experience is I walked the track recently when an older, aged white lady hurried to remove her pocketbook as she saw me coming from a distance at the soccer complex where I frequently walk. I kept silent at her ignorance. I really wanted to say, lady, please, I don't need the chump change, for the Lord has richly blessed me. And by the way, I may have even taught your children, or grandchildren, or great-grandchildren. Now, these are just some of the things we experience in Morgan and Steele, in Burke County. And I don't think the Confederate flags nor the statue helps in that. And that's just a little bit of my feelings and experience with that. And just want to let you guys know some of the things that not only we go do, there's other things we could really bring up about things that happen to us personally. But it's really an embarrassment to me when I've got visitors, as well as some of the reactions I get when I travel on what's supposed to be Burke County's nature playground, because there's not too many, there's playground there, but sometimes the people on the playground are not so nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kincaid. Any other speakers, Madam Clerk?
No, sir, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. This brings us to item number 9, consent agenda, and I'll recognize our county manager to review the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, you have 11 items on the consent agenda. Number 1, clerk appointment to RAAC and COA. Item 2, clerk appointment removal, Burke County Planning Board. Item 3, clerk reappointment/removal from Burke County Board of Adjustment. Item 4, clerk resolution updating plat review officers. Item 5, county manager funding for animal shelter conceptual design and update needs assessment. Item 6, finance application for public school building capital lottery funds. Item 7, fire marshal request for approval of a written agreement between Home Trust Bank and Longtown Volunteer Fire Department Incorporated. Item 8, general services site plan for Highway 70 Convenience Center /GS Complex. Item 9, tax department late applications for 2021 age exclusion and veterans exclusion. Item 10, tax department tax collection report for September 2021. Item 11, tax department release refund report for September 2021. That concludes your consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Gentlemen, you've heard the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion for its approval.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, thank you, Mr. Taylor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That's all of us, Madam Clerk. This brings us to item 10, items for decision. We have 2 items to consider tonight. First one will come from our Finance Division, discussion, approval of ARP items. This will be presented by Margaret Pierce, our Finance Director. Evening, Margaret.
Yes, sir. Good evening. We reviewed these items previously, and I'd like to go back through them and see if you have any other questions.
Margaret, excuse me just one moment. Gentlemen, I'd like for us to take these, we have really 4 areas. And Margaret, if you don't mind, let's take them one at a time, and we'll act on them one at a time, and maybe that will help this move more smoothly.
Item 1 under this is to approve the EMS American Rescue Plan expenditures up to $865,000 as presented. Would there be questions on this that you would like me to go further?
Let's just stop right there a minute, Margaret. Gentlemen, we discussed these during the pre-agenda. I wonder if you have any questions for Margaret or any of our department folks concerning these items tonight.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarity's sake, we went through these at pre-agenda, but just in case somebody's watching that's not aware about our pre-agenda meeting, we went through these items, and from what I was told, and I want to make sure I'm correct, these items are needed items. It's not a wish list. These are needed items that we would be purchasing anyway in the next 3 to 5 years. So these are items that are going to be used every day specifically for this purpose.
Yes, sir, absolutely, Commissioner Mulvey. They will enhance and improve our quality of patient care with our ambulance and EMS, and we're excited to be able to fund these outside of county dollars, if at all possible.
And I know one item on here, I think you had said that we'd only be able to afford to buy 1 or 2 per year, or approve a request. I can't remember which item that was.
The Zoll ventilators.
Zoll ventilators, so we would actually, by the time we actually bought enough ventilators that we needed to equip our ambulances over that period of time, we'd have to renew them anyway. This is a way to upgrade everything all at once.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just for clarity's sake. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, a quick question. Margaret, has there been any discussion about these items that we're going to be replacing with this ARP money? Are they still good? Will they be retained, or will they be, given to some other organization that could use them, et cetera, et cetera?
We would continue to utilize them as spares as long as possible until these come. Unfortunately, the time frame for these continues to change. We're hopeful to receive them in the next 2 to 3 months, but with the supply chain issues, we're probably looking a little bit longer. So until then, we'll be utilizing all the items, obviously. And as we go forward, we would have them as spares just in case something would have to be done with one of these.
So they'll be retained as a backup unit as needed?
Yes, sir.
That's the only question I had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Margaret on the EMS items? All right, seeing here none, I'll entertain a motion to approve this section as Scott suggested at $865,000.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wayne. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that's all of us. Okay, now we'll move to item number 2. This is items under the HVAC category. Margaret.
This is a request to approve the replacement and upgrade of HVAC units under the American Rescue Plan expenditures up to $650,000 as presented. These would be to improve airflow and ventilation quality within buildings, not simply to replace units one for one. This is an allowable expense because it will improve the air we're breathing in the buildings and that citizens that come into the buildings are breathing.
Any question on these items?
Mr. Chairman, I think I asked this in pre-agenda, but I don't recall the answer. What is the lifetime of all these very expensive pumps we're replacing? Some we're replacing are hardly 10 years old, but.
Pumps or HVAC, Mr. Taylor?
Pardon?
You said pumps, but do you mean the HVAC units?
Hold on a second.
You're on item number 2.
I thought that's where it was, Brian. Hold on a second. Well, it went away. I'll get it back.
These items in number 2 are items, boiler replacement at the Sheriff's Office, courthouse, chiller replacements, insulation, some heat pumps at the Library of Valdez in Morganton, the Ag Building, EMS 3 station, and Foothills Higher Ed. That's the items that we're looking at right here.
Maybe I did jump to the last.
Typically HVAC, and I may have to defer to Mr. Delahunt, but I believe we're talking 7 to 10 years, typically.
Yeah.
Hopefully longer.
Hopefully longer, depending on volume use.
Most of the ones in our buildings are much older than that, but you certainly wouldn't do it before 7 years, and hopefully can get 12 to 15 out of an HVAC
Excuse me,
unit.
my eyes did include items 2 and 3 together. I've got both of them.
That's okay.
We'll reserve the question until the next category.
Be ready.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for clarity's sake, once again, when people ask, these are items that we were going to put in the budget.
we were gonna do one for one and not do
Yes.
improvements, and
Not
this
do
way we're gonna be able
improvements,
to
exactly.
not utilize county dollars and actually do a better system.
Yes, just wanted clarity on that. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the HVAC ARP expenditures up to $650,000 for this group of HVAC equipment.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that's 5-0. All right, now this brings us to section number 3, the approval for water and sewer ARP expenditures up to $230,000. And Margaret can just highlight those items, if you will, please.
Yes, sir. This is a sewer line replacement near East Burke High School, SCADA replacement for sewer, water and sewer stations, and this is an alarm radio system that lets us know if there's pump failures, overflows, other issues that require to track by the state, and of course want to track to make sure our system's working. It is for pump replacements at MSM Pump Station 1, 2, 3, and 4, Music Mountain Pump Station, Piney Mountain Pump Station, and Owens Mountain Pump Station. These are items that would have been in our regular budget to replace these, but fortunately we're able to save the county dollars and utilize these funds instead to make some necessary replacements. Without these pumps, we will have overflows and issues with transporting either clean water to our citizens or the wastewater away from them and away from open water sources.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Any questions on these items?
And
Yes.
a pump will last
12 years.
12 years,
Yes.
roughly.
These pumps, what kind of warranty, how long will they last?
I will need to defer to Director Delahunt on detailed questions on the pumps, if that's appropriate.
Go ahead, Benji. 5 years.
You're gonna have to come up. Sorry. Benji West is gonna answer that question instead.
Okay, yeah, I'm probably ahead of my place in this presentation, but to answer that quick question, 5 years is a typical warranty for pumps, even though they're expected to last 10, 12, 15 years.
Any of these pumps we're replacing have bigger capacity?
I believe it's like for all these in that category 3. When we get to category 4, we'll talk about increasing capacity. But no, these under category 3 would not be an increase in capacity.
Well, I guess the third question would be, if they're not going up in pump size, have they been satisfactory ever, have we had to do a lot of replacement? And how new are some of these pump stations?
Yeah, well, I know Mineral Springs Mountain would be probably some of the oldest. That was in the early to mid 1990s. Those were installed. Now they may have been, Mark, of course, hasn't been here too long, so other staff may be able to answer as far as if they were replaced between then and now. I imagine some of them may have, some may not have, but that's how long those pump stations have been in existence. The Music Mountain and the Owens Mountain came a little bit later, but still at least 20 years old.
Okay, kind of the same question as before. Are the pumps worth anything? Can we redeem? Do we sell them? Do we market them? Or will they be declared junk?
Yeah, it's probably
Scrap metal typically is how we sell those.
Pardon?
Scrap metal is typically how we would sell those because the parts and things are not of any value to anyone typically. What we find is because they're pretty much made of metal, we're able to sell the scrap metal.
So they are worn so bad that it would be useless to try to market them.
Yes, sir. And my understanding is that capacity is not an issue on these ones. It's simply the age. That's why they've lasted much longer than they should have, is the fact that the capacity is appropriate for the size. And that's why to actually have growth room, we're replacing with like to like based on the recommendations of Benji and Mr. Delahunt.
Thank you.
Other questions on this item? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, is this going to solve our problems? I guess, is it any of those that we always have the flooding or whatever down there? Is this gonna solve our problems down there?
I think we'll have that discussion in this next group, Commissioner Avery.
Item 3 will not solve this problem. Item 4 is where we'll have that discussion.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the water and sewer ARP expenditures up to $230,000 as presented in item number 3.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Taylor. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that's 5-0. Now, that brings us to item 4, and we're going to hear an update from our General Services Director and Mr. Thomas from West Consultants on the Island Creek and Indian Hills pump stations. So, gentlemen, y'all come on up and tell us about these.
Yes, as you can see, well, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As you've noticed, we've included quite a bit of information in your agenda packets, and I'd like to just take a few minutes to go over that information, and beginning with the water sewer map that was included. The map here, let's see if I got this. Okay, this is the Island Creek pump station, Island Creek pump station, they're highlighted in yellow, and it receives all the sewer from this portion of the system and pumps it to what's called the Kerrville flume. A flume is a measuring device by which we pay our bill to Valdez, okay? So this is the system. All these orange legs on here are points of connection for the other municipalities, such as Rutherford College, Conley Springs, etc. Then the other part of the system would be this, I'm circling there, and as you can see, this is Indian Hills right there. All this flows to the Indian Hills station, and this pump station right there, of course, pumps it uphill so it can flow gravity all the way to Indian Hills. But all this sewer ends up flowing through the Indian Hills pump station. That's why the capacity is, we're talking about increasing it, etc. Let's see, what else did I want to point out about that? If you go to the next slide of, let's see, I guess, there we go. This is actually the Indian Hills pump station, and in this photo I wanted to point out the proximity of the creek to the pump station right here. This is where the actual pumps are housed, and the flow comes in this way, of course, goes to there, and then it pumps out going up the hill. This over here is a generator, standby generator. The next slide here is, this is the creek as it comes. Water's flowing this way, and as you can see, our pump station's located right in a curve. So what happens on a stream in a curve, it's going to erode the land as storm water flows through there at a rapid pace. Let's see. The next slide here shows some of the damage that was done through a recent storm in November. As you can see, the fence was knocked down when the creek overflowed its banks, and large debris such as trees and this, that, and the other went rushing by, and water actually, fortunately, didn't get up into the pump station or into the generator cabinet where all the electronics are stored, so we survived that part. But it was, again, we were talking, I think, last time about the elevation of the pump station itself, so I wanted to point that out. Let's see. The next slide here, this is, I'm going to let Benji speak to this one. This talks about some previous projects that I think we were asking about last meeting. This right here is, as we talk about the Indian Hills project, this is kind of a rough idea of what we hope or that it might end up looking like. Upsizing this line here all the way where it flows and becomes a City of Hickory sewer. I guess I got that right. Next slide here is kind of a detailed description of what we, just off the top of our head, might be some of the components of that Indian Hills project. That's it. Finally, I included in the agenda packet an email exchange between me and the Council of Governments. I believe there was questions last meeting about possibility of CDGB grant, and I've spoke to them about it, and I included their response in your agenda packet. And now I'll turn it over to Benji. He can probably speak more clearly to some of this stuff.
Thank you, Mark. Good to be with you, Board of Commissioners, and I'll just go back to that slide if you would.
Which one?
The one you wanted me to elaborate on there, yeah, that's it. Just some of the board members were here and some of the staff. We were involved with these couple of projects in the past to help give some context or history. So at the top of the page, you have the Indian Hills Pump Station improvements, a little summary of what was done in 2011, 2012. So that's when the pump station was converted from its original circa 1995 equipment. It was an underground steel type pump station. It was put into a concrete structure in that above ground enclosure that you saw. The capacity was increased from 670 gallons per minute to 1,000 gallons per minute. The cost for that project was just over $1 million. That was funded primarily through grants based on the job, I forget if it was job creation or job retention for Geiger International there in the Klein Industrial Park. At that time, the funding was, as I understand it, limited to a certain amount based on the jobs that were created. And so that kind of limited what could be done. Even at that time, the county desired to increase it more than to 1,000 gallons per minute. But the 10-inch force main that connects that pump station, Indian Hills, to the town of Longview's system was a restriction to going much more or any more than 1,000 gallons per minute. So that's kind of some background on that. That's why what the county's staff are giving you, suggesting now is not only to make improvements to the Indian Hills Pump Station site and its equipment, but also to replace that force main with a larger one so that the capacity can be increased. So a 14-inch force main is what we would recommend. But that shows you the background of what the last project that was done on that about 9 years ago. And then the bottom half of the page is a summary of the Island Creek Pump Station, since it's also being proposed to be upgraded. Back in 2008 was the last significant project on that station. It also was what I would call a tin can, a steel enclosure that was underground that housed the pumps that was fairly dangerous and antiquated. At that time, it was converted to a submersible pump station with a concrete wet well and increased to a capacity of 1,150 gallons per minute. So at this time, that pump station does not have a capacity issue, and really none of the work that was done in 2008 needs to be replaced other than the pumps themselves. So you've got the mechanical pumps down inside the concrete structure that they're Chicago brand pumps, which are now obsolete. They don't make them anymore. And of course, they're, I guess, 20 or almost 15 years old. And there again, that project was funded about 2/3 or 3/4 by a grant, Clean Water Management Trust Fund, total of $481,000. So Mark had asked me just to put that together so you'd have it as background information. And I'm going to pause there and answer any questions if I can.
All right, gentlemen, any questions to Benji on the kind of the history of where we've come from with these two stations? Sounds like we didn't go as far as we really would have liked at Indian Hills back in 11 and 12, but we just kind of was limited by the piping leaving there. And so now what we're looking at is increasing both the station and piping going out of there over to our connection to, is it Hickory? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'll fill in that information a little bit. So the pump station, Indian Hills Pump Station, connects to the town of Longview's sewer system, which then flows by gravity into the city of Hickory system. So what's being proposed is to upgrade or replace that 10-inch force main. That's the pipe under pressure coming out of the pumps. Change that to a 14-inch. That way we can get a lot more flow at the same pressure. Otherwise, if you try to force too much flow through a 10-inch line, it takes way too much pressure. You waste a lot of energy, and it gets the pressures up to dangerous levels for the pipe itself and the connections.
Excuse me, one thing I failed to point out is both the, in 2007, I guess there was a collection system assessment done by West Consultants, 2017, excuse me, and it actually recommended replacement of both the force main at Island Creek and to increase the capacity at Indian Hills, and both these projects are on this list.
Right, gentlemen, any questions for Mark or Benji on these items?
Yes, Mark, can you repeat that about Indian Hills again? That
Okay.
you're going from 10 inch to 14, is that what I heard?
That's correct.
And how much more capacity will that give us? 40% more?
100% more, approximately. So it'd be going approximately from 1,000 gallons per minute to 2,000. As you see in your information there with the detailed cost estimate, there's a footnote at the bottom. Obviously, Town of Longview and City of Hickory systems have to be able to accommodate that if you're to get up to that flow rate. Mark and I met with their staff just to talk about it. We don't have any definitive answers at this point as far as their ability or willingness to take that. We do know their system, physically, as far as the size of the pipe, they can take it. But now, as far as any kind of contractual negotiations, that would have to come about.
So if we go to 14 inches, you're going 14 inches all the way from that pump to the river?
To the railroad is where the connection point is to the Town of Longview system.
To the railroad?
The railroad at Highway 70A kind of.
Go back to that map.
There you go.
Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, there it is. Thank you.
How many feet is that?
It's about a mile or two. Let's see, it's in the detail here. Let's see. On page 191, it's almost 2 miles, really, 9,400 feet. Yeah.
So that'll take care of that sewage system for how many years?
So that
will it handle the growth of the county for how many years?
Right, that's a very good question. So right now, there's occasionally a capacity issue, primarily due to inflow and infiltration, rainwater getting into the system. So that's another item that really ought to continue to be addressed. But if you double the capacity, you've obviously almost doubled your ability for new industry or whatever reasonable growth may happen.
Well, I'm going to ask you a way out futuristic question,
All right.
okay? Since we're going to be there, and since we already got all that heavy equipment and diggers and all that, would it be advisable to lay 2 14-inch pipes in there to meet future growth of the county?
Similar to that, what I would recommend is keep the 10-inch pipe in place. So when we say replace it, we wouldn't literally dig it up and throw it away. We'd recommend leave it in place as a backup. And as you say, it could potentially be used one day to even increase capacity even more. But once you get over about 2,000 gallons per minute, you really are starting to run into capacity limitations with the physical infrastructure of the Town of Longview and the City of Hickory. So probably at that point, you'd be maybe looking at a totally different regional solution, maybe even another wastewater plant or something.
Anticipated the number of years that this will take care of us, 10, 12, 15?
But that Alan Wood maybe can answer that better as far as if you got any kind of industries coming to the Klein Industrial Park or other areas that had a lot of processed water. It could be used up immediately, or could use up 10%. But in terms of like homes, I know there's been a lot of discussion about the need for more homes. I'd have to run some calculations, but that would provide for a lot of homes. You're talking about an extra 1,000 gallons per minute. I mean, hundreds and hundreds.
Okay. I think that's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
And with these, when these estimates you have, I mean, we put this out to bid, I mean, it may be way more than that. Correct?
Maybe way off.
Yes. The
Yeah.
cost could be substantially different than from what we're looking at here. I mean, you're only as good as the information you have currently, but I understand that. But, just to make clear, if we did bid this out, and we did not like the bids, obviously, we don't have to pursue it. We're not obligated.
That's correct. That's a very good point. Glad you brought that up.
Because we don't have any idea, it's hard to make a decision. Really, I was chicken in the car. It's just, you know, that's a large number as it is, but if it comes back at 6 million, then we may be having a whole different discussion as well. So, you know, anyway, just for clarity's sakes on that. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Other questions?
I want to make sure that I didn't misunderstand what you said. You said rainwater ought to be addressed. Are we addressing it or not? Or did I mishear you?
You heard correctly. I know the county has worked to reduce that in the past.
How are we going to address it?
It's a difficult task. And it's nothing unique with Burke County. It's all over the country. You got pipes in the ground that 30, 40, 50 years old. They eventually leak. That's why on the other category, you've got that one piece of pipe or one segment to replace at East Burke High School. That's old clay pipe. The county has some clay pipe, but even PVC pipe or ductile iron, and the manholes in particular eventually deteriorate and let groundwater in. You also have issues where creeks, like you saw in the photos there of the Indian Hills Pump Station site itself, you got things like that going on up and down the creek where the sewer line has to be near the creek. It has to be kept flowing downhill. And so over time you get creeks moving and damaging with the sewer line, sewer system, and sometimes getting in the tops of the manholes or in the sides of manholes. So it has to be an ongoing effort to continually inspect it and make repairs as you can find them. And there's technologies out there to rehabilitate, restore old systems without replacing them 100%. So there's a lot of options, but it's kind of like maintaining an old car or anything else. It's just, it takes ongoing effort, and there's always going to be a certain amount of inflow and infiltration.
Rainwater seemed to be a nemesis for us over the years. Every time we come in here, we sit here and talk about that rainwater. So did you build anything into your estimates to see what we possibly could do about rainwater in the future?
You want to address that?
There was one of the items in my original request that was an I&I study, along with some money to address that. And I think right now we're leaning towards it might not be eligible, but hopefully when the final rules come out, we'll get some more definitive information on that. But certainly that was one of the items in my original thing, right along with this pump station, to address the I&I throughout our system. Also, correct me if I misunderstood another quote, was about Indian Hills back when we did the early work. Did I hear you say we couldn't put a 14-inch main in and now we can?
Correct. In 2011, the funding was limited based on the job creation.
It was just because of the grant. The grant was tied into jobs.
That's one reason.
Okay.
But another reason would be that at that time, capacity was not as much of an issue as just reliability.
Okay.
There was just, equipment was just failing all the time.
How does Hickory and Longview feel about this? You said you had some conversations. What did you really feel about this after you had the conversations? Are they ready to sign on and take this?
But no, I mean, it was just at staff level, and yeah, there was good exchange of information. We would need to come back with a proposal as in terms of modifying or amending the current contracts. But no, there was no immediate pushback, like there's no way we can take that. There wasn't any red flags like that.
I'd like to see us, just a personal opinion. I've sat here over the years and we've come here and we've looked at it and we've studied it and we've looked at it. You know, before I die, I'd really like to see this thing work one time and spend the money that's necessary. Now that we got some money, but I want to make sure that we put in the ground what goes in the ground. I want to make sure we have capacity for where we need it. I think the east end of the county is going to grow. I hope that's anticipated in your projections so that we can do this right one time. And I know rainwater is something that very unpredictable, but surely with the technology we have now, we could find a way to maybe find somebody that has a way to work with rainwater. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other question?
Mr. Chairman, follow up on Johnny's question just a little bit. Is that Indian Hill, that's a magnificent new, relatively new facility. Does it take on water too?
Well, the system takes on water throughout the collection system leading up to the pump station. So does it overflow the actual manhole? Right. If that creek overflows, it would. And part of this, I think we're talking about raising some manholes and stuff to lessen the potential for that.
Okay. And a second follow-up question. We noted that it stated you're going from 10 inch to 14 inch. What's the difference in going to 16 inch and really getting a good volume or capacity?
Right, okay. So that would go back to earlier discussion as far as 16, that may be the kind of thing, that's a small increase, and sometimes we do that. We bid it both ways and see how the bids come in. It may be a very small increase, and you may decide to go ahead and put the 16 inch in, like you say, just in case you may ever need it in the future. But again, 14 inches and 2,000 gallons per minute is probably the most you could push through town of Longview's system. Therefore, you probably have to take it to a whole different discharge point, and if you started getting more capacity than that. So.
Well, I guess, Mark, the easy solution is just tell people not to use the bathroom.
Hope it don't rain, right? I have one more follow-up question. How much of the system is gravity fed?
Total miles, I could give you that if off the top of my head. And how much is force main is the question, I guess.
How much, what role does the gravity play in our system right now?
So the map that he had up earlier,
Here it goes.
it's everything you see is gravity as far as all those green lines. The force mains probably don't really can hardly see them at this scale. So yeah, I don't remember how many miles it is. You got quite a bit. But everything that people are connected. There's a few exceptions. Every now and then you'll have somebody that the only point of connection they can make is to a force main. They have to put in their own pump, and they have to get special permission and use special devices to connect to a force main. But that's very rare. So 99% of your customers are all connected to gravity lines.
Yeah, if you can look closely at that map, all those little dots along the thing, those are actual manholes. If you see a line and there ain't no dots on it, that's a force main.
The reason we're talking so much about force mains tonight is that really you could think of the force main as part of the pump station. You've got all your gravity lines go from houses to streets and down, follow ditches and creeks to the lowest point in an area. And at that low point is where you have to put that pump station and lift that wastewater to some other point so you can get to the wastewater treatment plant. So really you got the pumps, you got a driveway to the pumps, you got a structure to house the pumps, you got a generator in case you lose power for the pumps, and you got this pipe between the pumps and the discharge point. That's what we call a force main. It's all just kind of one big system when you have a pump station and a force main. To get the capacity, to increase the capacity, in this case for Indian Hills, we're talking about adding a third pump. We're keeping the two that were put in 9 years ago. There's nothing wrong with them. But you would add a third one. You'd upgrade your electrical because now you got more horsepower by running two pumps and having one backup instead of running one pump with one backup. And then, half the cost of this estimate is replacing that or upgrading that force main.
Are we buying most of our water from Valdez?
Now you're talking about sewer.
Yep.
I mean, the sewer for this project area is City of Hickory.
City Hickory for sewer, okay.
Correct. The other one, the Island Creek Pump Station, is served by town of Valdez.
Okay. Island is Valdez.
Island Creek goes to Valdez, Indian Hills goes to Hickory.
I still get that confused.
Yeah, let's start with I. So, kind of.
Other comments? Okay, gentlemen, we've heard the information. Understand that what we're asking for here is not approval on a specific amount of money, but simply to direct staff to proceed with bidding this work so that we can get an accurate cost estimate of what this work would entail. Improving the forced main, improving these pump stations as they have detailed. So the request tonight is for proceeding with bidding the sewer projects for the Island Creek and Indian Hills pump station as that's presented. So
What if Longview says we ain't taking it?
then we'll be back to the drawing board. Do I hear a motion to direct staff to proceed with bidding this project and for Indian Hills and Island Creek Station and Force Main?
Mr. Chairman, this hurts bad, really bad, but I think if we could use ARP money, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month, that it's really a win-win for the citizens of Burke County because the majority of the funds are coming from the ARP money and not tax dollars. So therefore, I move the motion that you made.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Those in favor of the motion by Commissioner Taylor signify by the uplifted hand.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, will you repeat your motion?
The motion is to direct staff to proceed with bidding the ARP sewer projects for the Island Creek and Indian Hills pump station as they have presented tonight. Those in favor of the motion signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that's 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your effort. And now for the real work. Brings us to item number 2 on the decision agenda tonight. This comes from Community Development, a letter opposing House Bill 865. This bill deals with private inspectors of commercial buildings and structures. This will be presented again tonight by our Interim Planning Director, Shane. Hello, Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Request of the County Manager, the Community Development Department review House Bill 865 regarding the authorization of private inspectors of commercial buildings and structures in North Carolina. The department has concerns about this bill that have been outlined in your agendas. The department is concerned that if enacted, the bill could cause serious problems for our county and others across the state. It is our recommendation that this bill not be supported, and letters to our elected representatives have been drafted to that effect for your consideration. Thank you very much, and I welcome any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Shane. Gentlemen, you've had this information in your package. All the points that staff brings to us, I looked at it, and I tend to agree that I don't see this being very helpful for us. I'm not sure what precipitated our legislature to consider this bill. But any questions for Shane on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I have several, trying to understand this proposed amendment or whatever. The first one is, kind of give me, if you can, Shane, the true math on that first item. It says that, hold on a second, discount that the project and the discount of the permit by 80% by going to a private commercial inspector. And the county would be required to issue the building permit for the project and discount the permit by 80%. So can somebody change that formula into dollars and cents? What would it cost the county to do that?
Commissioner, so for example, say if a commercial construction permit cost $1,000, which is normally we would take in as the county to do the inspection work, we would then have to drop the permit fee down to $200.
But we don't do any of the work, is that correct?
We would not be
Private-
doing the
if I-
inspections, but we would still have to take in the money. We would have to create a system, I believe it's number 2, to hold bonds or I believe insurance as well. So we would have to do a tremendous amount of work on an administrative side for that 20% of the permit fee, and also be the ones to issue the CO at the end of the day, the certification of occupancy for those projects that we would not be allowed to inspect or have any say-so in that inspection.
The next item speaks to hold insurance coverage for 125% of the extra inspection costs. I really have trouble. We're not the private company, we're not the homeowner. Why would we have 125% insurance costs when they more or less eliminated the county out of the process?
This would be a requirement of the bill, Commissioner, and the county would be required to hold that bond essentially for, if for whatever reason the private inspector decided to walk away from the project, back out. If the county had to take over that inspection suddenly at any point in it, we would then have to call on that bond to cover the expenses that we would incur to do so. But we would have to have a system for every person who chose this option, every development that chose this option. We would have to come in and take the bond system, be responsible for either calling that in, returning it, going through that process for anyone who chooses to do this, and we would not be allowed to opt out at any point.
Can anybody give us the math on that? If we go to 125% bond, what kind of increase does that do to the county budget?
Presumably none, if we wouldn't have to call on it. If the inspection went through and then we had to issue the CO, we would return it and never have to call it. Otherwise, it would be, my assumption from how that would work would say if the permit is for that $1,000, the bond would be for $1,250 on that, $1,250, if I'm doing the math correctly on that.
So I guess the real question to me is, looking at all this, I can't come up with the money and the dollars amount that this changes from county to private parties. But maybe we can answer what created the need or the purpose or for Senator Daniel to write this bill? What was it supposed to be? Money saving for the county, or saving money for the private citizens, or have we had complaints? It's a pretty long bill.
Commissioner, I believe the primary sponsor of the bill is Representative Arp, if I'm not mistaken. I believe I recall that correctly from when I read through this. I'm not sure what the impetus for the bill was. I can't speak to that. We were just asked to review it and give our comments of how we felt that would affect the county. And we feel that it would be detrimental and quite cumbersome for us to abide by this if it were enacted.
Is the formula they presented here very difficult to do? Is it would be a hard changeover?
I believe so. I can't speak too much to the back end of Munis, but and Margaret may be able to address that a bit more, but we'd have to create some sort of system to have a different permit that would calculate it and then uncalculate it.
Maybe I can help with part of the math for this. One of the concerns with this bill is because you don't know from permit to permit who's going to make this choice, and you won't have a good history on that for years, we would not look, I would not believe we would look at changing our amount of expense and staff. So say, for example, half the people that get permits, our building permits run roughly $320,000 worth of revenue a year. And say half of those decided, I want to get my own inspector. So that's $160,000. So you take the 80% of that, $128,000 worth of revenue we could potentially lose. We're not going to change our expenses, but you could lose a significant portion of revenue. Your increased cost, in addition, would be an upfront of an estimate of $20,000 to rewrite the software and an increase of approximately $2,000 or $3,000 a year for maintenance fees for this additional piece we're going to have to buy and have programmed especially into our software, because this is only going to be a North Carolina thing. They're going to make us pay for it. It's not a system-wide. National things, they reprogram, but something that's specific, North Carolina entities would have to pay the software to redo it. So one of the concerns when I've reviewed this is the fact that our revenue now becomes a lot more questionable, but our expenses probably aren't going to change. So you could have a concern where they're still having to be on the hook and be on call to take over that permit if this private contractor fails. The insurance would be bought by the citizen or the private contractor. We wouldn't have an expense in that, but we would have an expense in beginning a new tracking system, holding all of this. They would have the challenge of knowing when to step in and when not to, still having to basically manage that permit, and yet we're not going to get 80% of the revenue for it. Does that help?
It helps. I understand your explanation. My question, or where the rubber hits the road, if you will, if our constituents can go to a private appraiser or inspector and get his house inspected for $500. If I go to the county, it's going to cost me $1,000. And every time somebody builds a house, that same scenario will be replayed. So if this board looks at this and decides you can save $500 a piece and you're going to do 1,000 houses, how much are we saving to our taxpayers, to the people who are building the houses? And the second part of that is trying to decide which one of these is actually the best deal for Burke County citizens. Sometimes the best deal is not seeing that the county makes money. It's really deciding which deal would better serve the average citizen of Burke County. And it kind of shocked me when I read this stuff. I said, gosh, where in the world did that come from? I think...
If I might interject just for a moment, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shane, but this bill is specific to commercial properties. It's not residential, so it's not. We're not talking about houses. We're talking about complicated, time-consuming commercial building. And I guess one of the biggest risks that I see is, if you went down the trail with this in a commercial building that may take 12 months, 18 months to build, and at the end of the day, this private inspector disappears. I can only imagine what the county inspector would have to do and require to go back and start that, even attempt to try to inspect that process. That's some of the risks that I see here. But yet, throughout the process, the county seems to be held liable for that taking place. And that's the biggest concern I have is we don't have tremendous amounts of commercial jobs, but yet they are complicated. They're much more complicated than, your house, your residence. So this would not impact, large numbers of folks in Burke County.
Well, item 3 is definitely a no-no. It says commercial inspectors are legally immune from actual or alleged acts of error, omission, or inspections. I mean, that doesn't sit good. I mean, which probably puts it back on the county. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Staff has actually been talking about the liability issue, the liability, and what that could cost the county that we won't know until, God forbid, something happened in that building that was unfortunately an error on this private contractor inspector, where they may or may not have the same skills and training and background that our inspectors have. And because we've issued the CO and the final, whether our insurance is going to hold us liable for any type of challenge that comes up down the road,
Well,
we don't have a cost on that.
The natural legality of that is really bad, because you can't, if you did it and we weren't involved, why would we ever be responsible for it? And if they make the mistake, they should be the ones that pays the bill. But I see several things in here that really give me some problems. I did not get a chance. I had a busy day. I had a funeral today, but I intended to call somebody and discuss this with them, but I did not get the time to do that. I think that's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions, comments on this matter?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the issuance of letters of opposition to HB 865 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Mulway. All those in favor of the motion signify by the uplifted hand.
Excuse me, what's the motion? I didn't.
To approve the issuance of the letters of opposition to this bill to our representatives, Daniel and Blackwell.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. Opposed? No, it's 5-0, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you very much.
All right, this brings us to item 11, reports and comments tonight. I will start way down there with Miss Margaret. Any comments or reports?
No, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the last meeting of Commissioners on September 21st, 2021, we have closed on the Kirksey Drive property that the county purchased from the Board of Education. It now belongs to us. We're going through the steps for a summary eviction from the property the county purchased from Johnny Williams, and we filed our summary eviction complaint today. We have prepared an offer to purchase and contract for the Jonas Ridge property that's adjacent to the county's property for the convenience center. We're getting a survey of that property, and that's our only holdup right now. I'm working with other counsel to prepare a motion in the cause for the Cook lawsuit to bring them back into court for contempt for failing to do what the court ordered them to, and that should be filed this week. And I'm also working on a motion in the cause for contempt in the Paget case, and that should be filed next week. I've completed a title search and prepared an offer to purchase and contract on certain property that the county has an interest in. I've reviewed a proposed lease agreement with the North Carolina Department of Public Safety for office space for juvenile justice. and have worked with IT and the administration concerning a far-reaching public records request from a news media outlet. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Mr. Attorney, Madam Clerk.
No comments tonight, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. Recently, our health department held a vaccination opportunity at Timetable Brewing, and we have a few pictures of that. They did very well down there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. Good thinking out of the box and getting a few more folks vaccinated. Commissioner Abley.
No comment.
Commissioner Taylor.
Mr. Chairman, in addition to the regular reports you received in your agenda packet, a couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention. And first, when I got an email this afternoon and listed the top places to retire in North Carolina, and I thought these were very interesting. Number 1 was Hendersonville. Number 2 was Hickory. Number 3 was Marion. Number 4 was Brevard. Number 5 was Roxbury. Number 6, Pinehurst. Number 7, Williamston. Number 8, Forest City. Number 9, Reidsville. Number 10, Black Mountain. Now, this study was, these people earned this rank of the people to retire in North Carolina due to a combination of factors. And first of all, of course, is the tax burden. It's 15.7 in Henderson County. It has nearly 7 doctors per 1,000 residents. Seniors make up almost 30% of that population. Second thing, and Kay did, thank you, Madam Clerk, a good job sending this out, but I want to remind everybody about the Clean Air and Water Conference at Western Piedmont Council of Government. That is October 28th and 29th. And Madam Clerk, I would like to ask you first the next week to, if you could do a survey and see how many is going from Burke County. I would like to present that at our meeting on Wednesday, if you could. The other thing, and this is not so much county, but it was such a huge, big event, I feel like I need to draw attention to it. We held the annual Reagan dinner on Saturday night, and you were well represented. Johnny Carswell was there. Our county manager, Brian Steen, was there, and county attorney was there. And I appreciate y'all coming to that meeting. We had presentations from Michael Whately, the GOP chair, Tim Moore, Speaker of North Carolina House of Representatives, Virginia Fox, Congresswoman of our district, Mark Walker, U.S. Senate candidate, Congressman Madison Cawthorn, North Carolina Senator Warren Daniel, North Carolina House of Representatives Hugh Blackwell, and had a huge number, 180 people attended that. And I wanted to say thanks to county manager and attorney and Johnny. And we missed you guys, but we had a good crowd and a good meeting. Excellent meeting. And I believe that oh no, I do have one more. Item 3, page 219, under Loudermilk Church, recommended the board should remain involved, et cetera, all yearly audits are really according to the law, should be reviewed and either approved or rejected by the full board. And I think we didn't do that, and that's where that's coming from. So you might want to double check on that item. And that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Carter. All right, thank you, gentlemen. I just have a couple items tonight, and I want to take a moment to express our condolences on behalf of the commission to the McMurtry family. And many of you know that last week we lost one of our law enforcement officers, a great officer here in Burke County in our sheriff's office, Lieutenant William Mac McMurtry III. Passed away last week, and we want to extend our deepest condolences to the family and to all of those loved ones there. And again, we certainly appreciate the service that Lieutenant McMurtry gave to our county. Let me ask you again not to litter in Burke County. Please secure your trash when you're traveling about. As we've already heard from our animal services, please adopt and foster pets if you can. And let me encourage you, if you've not received your COVID-19 vaccine, to please do that. And let me use this opportunity to thank you tonight for taking care of our COVID protocol. We've tried to provide as much distance as we can in our meetings, and most of you tonight have worn your mask. I appreciate that. Thank you for your cooperation with that. And let me again encourage anyone who has not received their vaccine to please consider that, and also the boosters if those are available to you. I would remind you that November 2nd is Election Day. Early voting ends on Saturday, October the 30th. We have school board elections going on, many of our municipal elections going on. Let me encourage you to go to the polls and cast your vote in these elections. County offices will be closed on November the 11th in observance of Veterans Day. Please remember that. And with that, I'll call on our clerk for vacancy announcements. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We have the following opportunities for citizens to be involved in county boards and committees: the Adult Care and Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee, Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, City of Morganton Board of Adjustment and Planning Board for the ETJ, Burke Senior Center Advisory Council, Recreation Commission, Child Protection and Child Fatality Prevention Team, East Burke Senior Center Advisory Board, the Board of Health, and the Burke County Planning Board and Board of Adjustment.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And let me also encourage you as a citizen to make yourself available if you possibly can for one of these committees and commissions. We need your help, and we need folks to serve in these capacities. This brings us to item 13, closed session. We do have a need for a closed session tonight to discuss threatened or pending litigation, to preserve the attorney-client privilege, to discuss economic development matters, to discuss contractual matters, and to discuss personnel matters. I will entertain a motion to go into closed session. All those in favor say aye. That's all of us. And tonight, I'm going to ask you, we'll also ask Jason Black to join us tonight in closed session. And to give us just a little more space tonight, we're going to ask you to vacate the room if you're not part of the closed session, so that we can stay out in this larger room for our closed session tonight. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. We appreciate all of you attending and your interest in your local government. Thank you very much. Session. Thank you, Scott. I'll announce that a proper motion was made to come out of closed session. And with that, gentlemen, we'd like to entertain a motion to purchase some property.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the purchase of 2.5 acres of real property, PIN number 27127-91633, read number 31865, and appropriate $290,000, $265,000 for the property, and the $25,000 due diligence survey of general fund balance, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mowey. All those in favor, please signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that is 5-0. And with that, gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion to recess to November the 2nd on 2021 at, please remember, 2 p.m., and where we will receive a presentation from the Western Piedmont Council of Governments on pre-trial release program. So remember, that's an hour before our pre-agenda meeting. So remember, 2 o'clock, November 2nd, we'll have a recess meeting with the COG for presentation pre-trial release program. With that, motion to recess until 2 p.m. November 2nd. Wayne made the motion. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much.